The text message came in at 11:52 at night. I was already in bed, not sleeping, just lying there the way men my age do, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle, thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I almost didn't look, but I did. It was from my son, Marcus. 34 years old, father of two, husband of 3 years to a woman named Brianna who I had never once had a real conversation with. The message said 4 words. "Did you see this?" Then a link. I sat up, clicked it. A Facebook video. Posted 3 hours earlier by someone I didn't know. Already had over 12,000 shares. And there I was. Standing in the rain outside a burning building on the corner of Maple and 5th in Clarksville, Tennessee, holding a 4-year-old boy I had never met in my life, wrapped in my jacket, his face buried in my shoulder. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then Marcus called. "Dad." His voice was different. Not the voice he used when he needed something. Not the careful, polite voice he used when Brianna was nearby. Something else. Something younger. "Hey, son." A long silence. Then, "Are you okay?" I looked at my hands in the dark. There was still soot under my fingernails. "I'm fine," I said. Another silence. The kind that holds more than silence usually can. "I didn't know," he finally said. And just like that, before he said another word, I understood exactly what he meant. Because 11 days earlier, my son had looked me in the eye across his kitchen table and told me I was not welcome at Thanksgiving. Let me back up. My name is Robert Calloway. I am 58 years old. I live alone in a small house on the east side of Clarksville that I bought 22 years ago when the neighborhood was rougher and the price was right. I retired early from the city water department after a back injury that healed well enough to let me move around normally, but not well enough to spend 8 hours underground anymore. I have 1 son, 2 grandchildren. A dog named Herschel who sleeps on the foot of my bed and acts like he owns the place, because he does. My wife Sandra passed away 6 years ago. Ovarian cancer. 14 months from diagnosis to the end. She was the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday, kept a calendar with color-coded stickers, and cried at insurance commercials. I don't say that to make you feel sorry for me. I say it because after she was gone, all of that, the calendar, the color-coded stickers, the reminders, the reason to have a plan, all of it went with her. What I had left was Marcus. And for a while, that was enough. He came by on Sundays. We watched football. I taught him how to fix the gutters on his house the first winter after he bought it. When Brianna was pregnant with their first, I drove them to every appointment because she had anxiety about highways. I did not complain once. Their daughter, Noelle, is 5 now. Their son, Camden, is 2. I love those kids more than I have words for. Some mornings I wake up and the only thing that gets me out of bed is the idea that I might see them that week. But things had been changing. Slowly, then faster. The Sunday visits got shorter. The phone calls got fewer. I told myself it was normal. Young family. Busy lives. I told myself a lot of things. Then came Thanksgiving. Marcus called on a Tuesday afternoon, 11 days before the holiday. I was in the backyard raking leaves, and I came inside sweating, still holding the rake, when my phone rang. "Hey, Dad." He sounded rehearsed. That's how I know now when Marcus sounds rehearsed. It means Brianna, and he talked about it the night before, and he drew the short straw. I asked how the kids were. "Fine." I asked how work was. "Fine." Then the pause. "So, about Thanksgiving." "Okay, Brianna's parents are coming up from Nashville. Her sister and the kids are coming too. It's going to be a full house." I waited. I already felt it coming, the same way you feel a storm before the clouds arrive. "We just think it might be better this year if we maybe did something smaller. Just you and me." Lunch. Before or after? I stood there in my kitchen with sweat cooling on my neck and a rake still in my hand. Before or after? As if Thanksgiving was a dental appointment and I was the waiting room. I want to be clear about something. Marcus did not invent this idea. I knew even as he was saying the words that it hadn't come from him. The phrasing was too careful. The timing, Brianna's parents, her sister, was too convenient. I had been squeezed out by committee, and Marcus had been elected to deliver the news. But knowing something and feeling it are 2 different things. I set the rake against the counter. I asked him one question, just one. Was this your idea, Marcus, or hers? Silence, long enough to be an answer. Dad, that's not fair. I told him it was fine. I told him not to worry about it. I told him I had plenty to do and we'd figure something out. I said all the right things in all the right order, and when I hung up, I sat down at my kitchen table and did not move for a very long time. Herschel came over and put his head in my lap. Yeah, I told him. I know. Here is what I did not do. I did not call Marcus back and tell him he was wrong. I did not call Brianna and say what I was thinking. I did not send a long text. I did not make him feel guilty. What I did was this. I called the produce market on Greenfield Road and ordered a full Thanksgiving box sweet potatoes, a fresh baked pie, a smoked turkey breast from the deli counter, rolls, the works. I drove there on the Monday before the holiday, paid for it, drove it to Marcus's house. I rang the doorbell. Brianna answered. She looked surprised, then immediately arranged her face into something pleasant. I handed her the bags. It's for the family, I said. Tell Marcus I said to enjoy it. She started to say something. I was already walking back to my truck. I drove home, fed Herschel, watched the news, made a sandwich, went to bed. Thanksgiving itself was quiet. I had scrambled eggs in the morning, walked Herschel around the block twice, watched football in the afternoon and found myself genuinely absorbed in the game, which surprised me. Around 4 o'clock, I started to feel the edges of it, the empty house, the particular silence that collects in rooms where a family used to gather. Sandra would have had that kitchen smelling like cornbread stuffing by 10 in the morning. She would have made Camden a little plate with everything separated so the foods didn't touch, because he was going through a phase. I sat with that for a while. Then I got up. There is a community center 3 blocks from my house, St. Augustine's run out of an old Methodist church. I had started volunteering there 2 years earlier, mostly because my doctor told me I needed to get out of the house and I had run out of excuses. I helped with their food pantry on Tuesdays and their after-school program on Thursdays. I fixed things plumbing, electrical, small carpentry. They had a running list of repairs, and I worked through it like a man with nothing better to do, which, honestly, some weeks I didn't. On Thanksgiving evening, one of the organizers, a woman named Pat Hendricks, texted me. They were running a community dinner. Someone had called in sick. Could I come help serve? I texted back, on my way. That dinner fed 160 people, families from the neighborhood, some elderly residents from the assisted living place on Broad Street, a few folks who had nowhere else to be. I spent 4 hours on my feet, ladling sweet potato casserole, refilling water pitchers, making bad jokes about the turkey. I got home at 9:30, satisfied in a way that the couch had not been making me feel. I slept fine. 4 days after Thanksgiving, Marcus texted asking if I wanted to do that lunch he had mentioned. I said, sure, let me know when. He said, maybe next week? I said, sounds good. We did not set a specific day. I want to be honest with you. Something had shifted in me. Not bitterness. I have seen what bitterness does to men my age, and it is not something I wanted, but a kind of clarity. For years I had been the one reaching, the one checking in, the one who showed up. And I had started to wonder, quietly, what would happen if I stopped? Not out of spite, just to see. The answer, in the weeks after Thanksgiving, was that not much happened. Marcus texted occasionally. I responded. We were polite in the way that strangers at a bus stop are polite. Noelle sent me a drawing through Marcus's phone, a turkey she had made at school. Brown crayon, 5 fingers for the feathers. I put it on the refrigerator and stood there looking at it longer than I should have. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday, the second week of December, cold for Tennessee in the low 30s, and a hard rain had been coming down since late afternoon. I was driving back from St. Augustine's, where I had stayed late to replace a burst pipe under the kitchen sink, and I was heading east on Maple when I saw it. The building on the corner, a 3-story apartment complex, older, wood frame, had fire coming out of a second-floor window. Not a flicker. A full window of orange flame, black smoke pushing out the top. I pulled over before I had finished deciding to. I called 911 as I was getting out of the truck. I could hear people shouting from above. Someone screaming a name. I looked up and saw a woman on the second-floor landing of the exterior staircase, and she was holding something. I thought at first it was a bag, but it was a child. She was holding a child and she could not get down because the staircase below her had caught. I don't have a dramatic version of what happened next. I am not a young man. My back talks to me in cold weather. I have 17 pounds I have been meaning to lose for the past 3 years. But I had been a utility worker for 26 years. I had been in dangerous situations. I knew how to stay calm inside chaos. There was a dumpster against the side of the building. Metal. Solid. I climbed it. The metal was wet and I slipped once, but caught myself. From the top of it, I could reach the railing of the landing above. I pulled myself up in a way that my back is still reminding me about. The woman on the landing was terrified. Late 20s, dark hair, barefoot. She had grabbed the child and run and hadn't stopped for shoes. "I've got you," I said. "Fire department is coming. I need you to give me the little one first." She looked at me the way people look at you in emergencies, not processing your face, just deciding whether to trust you. She must have decided yes, because she handed me the boy. He was 4. I found out later. His name was Theo. I held him against my chest, climbed back down to the dumpster, down to the sidewalk. Set him down, climbed back up for the mother. She came down herself, I just steadied her. By the time we hit the sidewalk, the fire trucks were turning onto Maple. I did not think about any of this as heroic. I thought about it the way I think about fixing a pipe. There was a problem, there was a solution. I was standing close enough to try. What I did not think about was the man standing on the opposite sidewalk with his phone out. He had been recording the whole thing. I did not go to the hospital, though the paramedics pushed for it. I had a few scrapes on my palms from the railing. I had soaked through my jacket. I was cold. One of the firefighters put a blanket around my shoulders, and I stood there in the rain feeling slightly ridiculous while they cleared the scene. A young woman with a press badge found me and asked a few questions. I answered her. I didn't think about it. I just wanted to go home. I got home after 11. Changed my clothes. Made tea. Sat at the kitchen table in the dark for a while, the way I do sometimes now. Herschel put his nose on my knee. I was almost asleep in the chair when my phone started going. First a text from a neighbor. "Is this you on Facebook?" Then another. "Rob, you're everywhere. Are you okay?" Then Marcus called. I have already told you how that began. The video. The 12,000 shares. His voice, younger than it had sounded in months. We talked for nearly 20 minutes that night, which was longer than we had talked in one stretch since Sandra's funeral. He wanted to know everything, what happened, how it happened, whether I was hurt. He kept asking if I was sure I was okay. At the end, he said something I was not expecting. "Dad, why didn't you tell me where you were that night?" I thought about that for a second. Then I told him the truth. "Because for the past few weeks, it didn't seem like you needed to know." He didn't answer right away. "That's not fair," he said. Same words he had used when I asked whose idea Thanksgiving was. "Maybe not," I told him, "but it's true." Another silence. Then quietly, "Can I come over tomorrow?" "Yes," I told him. I will not pretend that the visit the next morning was easy. Marcus sat at my kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug. And for a while, neither of us said much. He looked tired. He looked, honestly, a little like a man who had been caught at something. He started talking first. Told me that it had been Brianna's mother's idea, that Susan had decided years ago that she did not like me, though Marcus could not or would not explain why. That Brianna had started to absorb that opinion the way we absorb the opinions of people we love without realizing we're doing it. That Marcus had known the Thanksgiving conversation was wrong the moment he made it, but had made it anyway because he did not want to fight. I listened. I did not interrupt. When he finished, I asked him one question. "When you handed Brianna those grocery bags I brought, what did she say?" He looked down. "She said it was a nice gesture." I nodded. "Marcus," I said, "I am not asking you to choose between your wife and your father. That is not something a decent man asks his son to do. But I am asking you to be honest with yourself and with me about what has been happening. Because I am 58 years old and I have a bad back and a dog and not an unlimited number of Thanksgivings left. And I would like to spend them somewhere I'm actually wanted." He looked up. His eyes were red. He said, "You're wanted, Dad." I said, "Then I need you to mean that. Not just today. Going forward." He nodded. Not the quick nod people use to end a conversation. The slow one that means they heard you. We talked for another hour. When he got up to leave, he hugged me at the door. Actually hugged me, both arms. the way he used to when he was small. I had not realized until that moment how long it had been. After he left, I stood in the kitchen for a while. Herschel looked at me from his bed in the corner. "Don't look at me like that," I told him. He kept looking at me like that. The following 2 weeks were strange. The Facebook video kept spreading. A local television station ran a short feature. A reporter from the Clarksville Leaf Chronicle called and asked if she could write something longer. I said yes, mostly because she had already spoken to Pat Hendricks at St. Augustine's, and Pat had apparently told her enough that the story was going to run whether I cooperated or not. Pat has that quality. The article came out on a Sunday. It talked about the fire, but it also talked about the volunteer work, the food pantry, the after-school kids I helped with homework on Thursday afternoons. There was a boy named Deshaun who I had been helping with middle school algebra for 6 months. The reporter had called his mother. His mother had said things that made me uncomfortable to read because they were kind. I read the article twice. Then I put the newspaper down and went to fix the loose step on my back porch, which had been bothering me for weeks. Brianna called that Sunday afternoon. Not Marcus, Brianna. She identified herself as if I might not recognize her voice. Then she said she had read the article. Then she said she was sorry. I did not make it easy on her. I am not proud of that, but I also am not ashamed of it. I asked her what she was sorry about specifically. She paused. Then she said, "I let my mother's opinion become my opinion. That wasn't fair to you. That was more than I expected." I told her I appreciated her saying it. Then I told her something I had been sitting with for a while. "Brianna, I'm not your enemy. I was never trying to compete with your family. I only ever wanted to be in my son's life and in my grandchildren's lives. That's all I wanted. I hope someday that can happen without it being complicated." A long pause. "I hope so too," she said. We didn't speak much longer. But it was enough. A beginning, not an ending, and I was old enough to know the difference. Christmas was different that year. Not a movie Christmas. Not everything repaired overnight, but different. Marcus asked me to come. Not as an afterthought, not as a consolation. He called on the 1st of December and asked what time I wanted to arrive on the 25th. He asked if I still liked cherry pie, because Noelle had decided she wanted to bake something with help, and she wanted to make something I liked. I told him I had always liked cherry pie. He said good. He said Noelle had been very serious about this. When I arrived on Christmas morning, Camden came running to the door before I had finished knocking. He said, Pop his name for me, a name I had not heard in too long, and I picked him up and he smelled like syrup and clean pajamas, and I stood there in the doorway of my son's house holding my grandson and felt something settle back into place. Brianna's mother, Susan, was there. We were not warm. We were polite. I helped her carry a dish to the kitchen table and she said thank you, and I said of course. That was the extent of it. Life is not a movie. You do not always get the scene where the difficult woman admits she was wrong and everyone cries and hugs. Sometimes you get a kitchen pass and a thank you, and that is enough to build on. Noelle's pie was lopsided. She had used too much sugar in the filling and the crust had cracked on one side. It was the best thing I ate all day. I told her so. She looked at me with the absolute confidence of a child who has been praised by someone she trusts, and she said, "I know, Pop. I made it really good." I laughed until my eyes watered. There is a version of this story that ends there. The nice Christmas, the reconciliation. Everyone better and the problem solved. But that is not quite how life works, and you know it as well as I do. The real ending, the one I carry around, happened in late January. Theo, the 4-year-old boy from the fire, had been discharged from the hospital weeks earlier. Mild smoke inhalation, treated and released. His mother, whose name was Claire, had reached out through the community center to say thank you. She brought Theo in one Thursday afternoon while I was there. Theo was small for his age. He had brown eyes and a small scar on his chin from a fall he'd apparently taken long before I ever met him. He stood in front of me with a drawing in his hand. He had drawn it himself. A man on top of a dumpster, which was depicted as a brown rectangle, with a child underneath, and the word hero spelled out across the top, with the E backwards. I am not a sentimental man. I want to make that clear. I am just saying that I had to look at the ceiling for a moment before I could speak. Claire said, "He's been talking about you since it happened. He wanted to know your name." I told him my name. He repeated it seriously. "Robert." "That's right," I told him. He handed me the drawing. I thanked him. He nodded once, satisfied, and then walked over to the bookshelf in the corner and began examining the books as if his job were done. I still have that drawing. It is on the refrigerator next to Noel's turkey. Marcus saw both of them when he brought the kids over for dinner one night in February. He stood in front of the refrigerator a moment. Then he looked at me. He said, "You've been busy." I said, "I've been living." He smiled. Not a polite smile, a real one. And I want to tell you something, because maybe you need to hear it today. I wasted years measuring my worth by whether my son called, by whether I was included, by whether the people I loved remembered what I had given. I thought love had to be acknowledged to be real. I thought if they forgot about me, it meant I didn't matter. I was wrong. You do not stop mattering because someone stops paying attention. The work you do quietly, the people you help without announcing it, the presence you offer without demanding credit, that is not nothing. That is everything. My son came back. Not because I chased him, because I stopped. And when I stopped, he finally looked up and noticed the distance. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is live so fully on their own terms that the people who forgot you can't help but remember. And if you've ever sat alone at a table that used to have more people around it, if you've ever felt like the family you built somehow moved on without you, I want you to know that you are not finished. Not even close. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you've been through something like this, leave your story in the comments. I read every one. Sometimes the people we love most stop seeing us, not out of cruelty, but out of distraction, drift, the slow gravity of other lives pulling them sideways. Robert never chased anyone down or demanded to be noticed. He just kept showing up for strangers, for a cold community kitchen, for a child on a burning ledge, and in doing so, he remembered his own worth before anyone else did. That's the quiet secret. Live fully, and the right people will find their way back. A small note for you: this story was created and fictionalized by AI, crafted to bring you a moment of warmth and entertainment while sharing a life lesson worth carrying with you.